This is Douglas County Digest, and we're here today with the Economic Development Director for Tuscola, Brian Moody. Welcome, Brian.
Hi.
I want to talk to you about things that have been accomplished, things that are in the works, and future plans for Tuscola.
Gotcha.
First of all, we're glad to see that the water tower is done.
Right, absolutely.
So we're excited about that.
Right.
Fill us in on that. Main Street renovations, Washington Street renovations, and things like that that are completed.
Absolutely. Well, we've had really the past 2 years, residents have been kind of dealing with the construction of several water improvement projects. We've done some water line upgrades in a number of key areas in town. Taken out some points that were, I guess, kind of choke points, I guess, for the water system would be the best way to say it, and connected a lot of new hydrants into the system. But as a result of that, we had some road work that needed to be done and some repairs that had to be made. We had, in 2 cases, we crossed the multiple railroad crossings, or the CSX and Union Pacific Railroad crossings in Tuscola, and very complex intersections, and had some difficulties there, and so they came back and did some additional road work to really clean that up. And fortunately, those are now all open and really nice improvements, and been some good improvements to our system as a result. Tying into that, we also had a capital replacement or a capital upgrade project scheduled for a number of years, the painting of the water tower both inside and out, and that work actually just wrapped up over the past week, and they just filled the water tower back this weekend, and paint's all finished on the outside and looks great. So fire department especially is tickled to see that over. I never like to be during that period with the water tower down, but managed to get through without too many issues. We had quite a few smaller water line breaks that were really a result of fluctuations in the pressure in the system over the past year. So we've had folks had to deal with that at different times, but happy to say it looks like that's all resolved. So finished up there. Again, Washington Street was a big part of that. Washington really took the brunt of the construction work there, and has had an upgrade. In the past year, we've also repaved the downtown and the Main Street corridor going south. Also, some water line work led to some repairs of that this spring, and those have just finished up. So really done a lot of infrastructure, road improvements here recently that in key arteries that we think are real important. Another project that finished up just last week, the city was able to help the school district. There's some planning and discussions here recently kind of put light on the fact that one of the exits coming out of the elementary school was really kind of a chokehold, and the way they had redesigned some of the bus traffic in and out, it actually caused some more conflicts at that intersection. So took a look at that towards the end of the year, and the city was able to help the school district with a grant to cover a new turn lane structure there, and that's all in place and going to be ready to go here in the fall. So glad to see that as well.
Well, it's good for the turn lane as well as the backdrop for the football field.
Absolutely, absolutely, right.
Of course, something that's on everybody's mind is the fertilizer plant. Can you fill us in on the details of how we got to this point, where we're at, and then what the future
Sure, absolutely, be glad to. So we started working with Cronus about almost 13 months ago now, and approached us that they were evaluating sites across the country. They had actually identified 72 sites at one point, and started interacting with them over the course of several months, and quickly found that we had a local site that really fit their needs well, and began that work. We're in a little bit of a unique situation in Illinois compared to some of the states around us, in that the state economic development agencies in neighboring states are very empowered and have the ability to negotiate a variety of incentives and put those actually in place. In Illinois, depending on what types of incentives are already in place in your area, you may need to go seek legislation in order to really secure the right kind of incentives. That is exactly the situation we found ourselves in. Douglas County, unlike many states, many counties in the state, does not have an enterprise zone. And as a result, it really puts us at a bit of a disadvantage. There is a process through the state called the High Impact Business Designation that you can pursue and get very similar benefits for a large industrial project. And we had been through that process before for FutureGen, so I was very familiar with it. And we approached our legislators, Representative Adam Brown and Senator Chapin Rose, to help with that, and both gave us great help, and we were very fortunate. We had at different times a number of different bills going through the General Assembly. In the end, our bill was wrapped into Senate Bill 20, which ultimately passed both houses, and I just received confirmation last week that it has officially been placed on the governor's desk, which means they have about a 60-day window to respond to that bill. And everything we've heard from the governor's office has been very supportive. They're a supporter of the bill, and we're anticipating signage here at some point in the near future. We understand it's the final bill ended up being a very large bill, a lot of projects in that bill, a lot to coordinate as a result of that. So we just kind of assume there's a lot of political timing to consider for that, and like I said, it really played out in a nice progression for us. Cronus has been working to finish up a lot of their engineering and design work and get a final project estimate. And once they have that information, we've really completed most of our local work here. We're in the kind of final couple weeks of clearing up some issues. That was actually one of the things I was dealing with this morning, was just a small drainage tile issue. Where can this pipe go? Where can it go? Things like that. Once they have all that together and their team's able to come back together and really go through those estimates, the sense we get is that they're just a few weeks out from site announcement, and I'm really anticipating probably the first week of August. I think seems like an ideal time when we might actually hear something. So
when we get this, and I'm thinking
that's how I like you to think,
when we
right?
get this, what does this mean for Tuscola as far as jobs or anything?
Right. Yeah, tremendous impact. Tremendous impact we see, and in so many ways. The most recent comparison we had a significant amount of pipeline work go on about 3 years ago. Rockies Express built a large 42-inch diameter pipe through here, and we had a lot of crews through here. Those were typically 200 to 400 workers at a given time, and for the most part, that was all wrapped up inside of a year. Some stretch beyond that, but the core team was here about that time. And we had a little more benefit because they worked a parallel corridor to 36 in Illinois, so this was a good base for a lot of that stretch. This project, we're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 construction workers, probably a regular peak around 1,500, and a construction period that's more, not just a year, closer to 36, 38 months. So obviously all that time we won't have that force on the ground, but a pretty significant time, I'm assuming longer than 2 years, we'll have that group here. So there's the obvious benefits of the boom of that impact. We'll see. We've seen some initial estimates looking at the economic impact being $300 to $400 million from the construction activity, and that's just all the traffic around it, everything associated. The guys and the folks coming from the plant to eat, buy gas on the way home. The folks that stay here, we assume there'll be a lot of workforce will come from this immediate area. That's sure our hope and something we're trying to make happen. But we know that there'll be some beyond that too. So, hotel stays, just the restaurants, just the traffic, it filtered down into so many other businesses. We were surprised with the pipelines, even how many spouses moved in just for even a year, 2 year, especially with the probably the more regular crew that's orchestrating the plant, that's traveling around. Those folks seem to bring kind of a whole group with them, and so I think we'll definitely have some positive impacts from that. But one of the things I'm so excited about is we've had a lot of experience with the chemical industry. We have seen those jobs. I'm glad it's not a 1,500, 2,000 employer that's full-time. Some people will probably be, wouldn't you want the jobs? Well, yes, and we would probably go after things like that, but a manageable impact. I think, it has the ability to provide a lot of positives, but it's something that we can readily handle. The type of payroll that I think that we'll see out of this facility is consistent with the existing industry that we have, probably a little bit more significant than that, a little larger workforce. These will be high skill, well-paying jobs. There'll be a variety of professional jobs, as well, tied along with the facility. But The other thing is, we really see it provide being a game changer in the sense of providing a lot more momentum for the community. We have worked on a number of large projects like this over the past few years. We've been very fortunate to have those prospects when other communities haven't. And all those prospects along the way have always really felt like you just really need that first project to get things kind of going again. The infrastructure that's here, when we bring folks through to look at these sites, the comments we get are just unbelievably positive. One additional thing that we worked on kind of side by side in recent months with Cronus, CSX Freight Road has a program called CSX Select Site. It's a pre-certification process, and they have about 10 sites across the country that they put through this process, and we've entered that process. I'm hopeful that we'll wrap that up and have our sites certified under the Select Site process. But as those consultants have come in and to do these evaluations and do this analysis, we just hear that again and again, that this is just an ideal spot to develop a large facility. Our infrastructure is just really unbeatable, and from just so many angles, and we really have the potential to be a good fit with a number of different industries. So, again, a lot of that is having some of that new infrastructure, some of that new activity going on, and attracting additional interest to your area because of it. So, like I said, I'm very positive on Cronus. I think we've done a really good job of giving them an incentive package that is really tailored to helping out with some key bottom line issues for them, and is not some, we see some of these numbers sometimes in some of these state competitions, and they're not these outrageous numbers that I see in so many of these. So feel good about that. I feel good that our spot really puts them in the best possible situation long term, and ultimately I think that's got to carry more weight than almost any other part of the decision. So again, feel good about that, feel good about our industrial opportunities. There's a lot of positive things kind of happening at the moment in Illinois, related to the chemical industry, the farm industry, the agriculture industry, oil and gas in general. We're in a position to really take advantage of some of those things, so that's what I'm trying to focus folks on.
Do you have any approximate numbers of jobs after the construction?
Yeah, absolutely. We're anticipating there'll be 150 permanent full-time positions in the plant. There will be another 40 to 50 that are permanent contract maintenance positions that will be in the facility daily. And it looks like they're hoping to originate a lot of the trucking out of here. So that would probably be another 20 to 30 jobs based on the number of trips they think there'll be a day. So, and that probably is the one that has the most potential to grow really beyond that. But all those jobs, they're thinking those are $70,000 a year jobs plus benefits. So again, those are ideal manufacturing jobs, as highly sought after as any I can think of. So, but then the secondary impact, I would keep calling it the second wave, is the fact that unlike so many other different projects we might pursue, these products are going to be bought and sold within 100, 150 miles of this plant. One of the benefits for the company to pick this site is that if they don't sell that product locally, they can easily transport it out without any issue. But again, they're going to be right here in the heart of corn country. Iowa has 2 plants that have already been announced, one that's under construction, one that's an expansion of an existing facility on either end of their state. I can't see you wanting to really be in the middle of that for a lot of different reasons. And we don't have this situation in Illinois. They're out to other borders, and so we don't have a local provider here, not anything of this scale. So again, I think it's a perfect spot, perfect for everyone. But to know that product's going to get sold, bought here in this market, it will be significantly less cost than what it would be buying it from outside. The biggest cost that our farmers face in fertilizer is transporting that fertilizer with anything is transport. So if you can reduce that, that distance, should put more money back in their pockets. And when that that happens, we see those dollars turn around and come back to the community. So you really, that's why I'm really so excited about this. It's just such a great fit all the way around. Again, we get kind of multiple impacts from that, and it's a sustainable size. It's not something that, with a market shift one way or the other, it's going to have a lot of ups and downs. It's not. I don't see it being that way at all.
You had talked about in Illinois there are changes and growth coming in in agriculture, in gas, oil, things like that. Speaking of that, I've heard rumors about a new gas station, kind of like I guess truck stop in Tuscola.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So this is really the end of or not the end, I guess, but a new start point after the end of a long road. On the former Dixie truck stop property. So we had a truck stop that was a large local business for all my childhood, and was a big facility, and really started to decline probably 20 years ago, and has had a lot of different tenants in and out. Had about a partial, I guess a half completed environmental remediation project, and there were a number of different title obstacles that were really prohibiting us from finishing out that. So about 5 years ago, my board got really interested in trying to fix that, and made a lot of effort, made a lot of outreach. The ownership of the properties associated with it got consolidated, and we basically had one owner to deal with, and that made everything a lot easier. We got engaged with the Illinois EPA and got that whole process going, got the environmental engineers re-engaged, and were able to get that work done last year, and we did about a little over $700,000 worth of site remediation, all paid through a state program, and these facilities had put money aside year after year to the state, and now the state is coming back to do those remediations. So we cleaned up that site, and we've had some interest in the site before, but once we did the remediation, it really picked up. And it's a ideal corner. It's been a target for redevelopment for the city, top priority for as long as I can remember, because it's along our main entrance corridor, and it's really not been an attractive property recently. So worked with a number of groups, and finally kind of settled with a developer that we had known, a gentleman by the name of Mike Landman out of Mattoon, and he expressed some interest in rebuilding a convenience travel plaza. Wouldn't have the truck operation on the scale that Dixie does, but it would have a small island, and would mainly be geared to the highway traveler, and also have some food components and some takeout food, that type of thing in there as well. So been working with Mike for some time, and we've finally kind of had all the stars align, and it is going to final approval at the Zoning and Planning Commission later this week, and we'll have a final council approval. And hopefully, really within the next week to 2 weeks, they should be able to get started on the site work out there. People should be very surprised. It will be a very significant project. The entire parking surface will be coming out of there completely. It will be a complete redesign and rebuild. We'll have new city streets, water drainage all through there, new storm sewer structures all through there. A pretty significant road work piece that the city will be doing as part of the TIP program out there. And then the developer will be building a pretty significant new project there, the convenience store and the travel center. I'm not sure if I have a final number on that, but I know it's in the $3 to $4 million range, the project itself. The road piece additional to that. That will leave us with some very nice new commercial sites as a result of the other road work and some of the landscaping and stuff that will be done through there. We've been in initial conversations with the same developer, but they're indicating there's a good likelihood of building another what I'd call a highway fast food business right there on the front of that property as well. And I'm hoping we're going to know some more about that in the next couple of weeks, but sounds like those discussions are going well. And then developers also expressed some interest in redeveloping the back half of that property, which abuts right up to the school. I think their initial hope is that will be a casual dining, sit-down style restaurant. They've discussed a number of different concepts, and basically had hoped to start on the first development and start doing planning on the second development. So our assumption would be that Cronus will have an impact on that decision, or how quickly they might want to move on that decision. Like I said, they've got quite a project on their hands for the first piece, and I think they want to get that kind of started and coming out of the ground before they make some decisions on the north end. But a lot of interest in the Route 36 corridor recently. I've had a lot of prospects out there looking at that area. One other key thing we've been working on from the city's perspective, we did complete a repavement, resurfacing actually, of the road around Tanger outlets. That was something I also forgot from the end of last year. Obviously Tanger is, the juice that makes a lot of this operation work, and what they've been able to make happen in the city. The road out there was in not good condition. The mayor liked to joke that when they did the whole mall deal originally, got that all done, the road was the last thing that they all had to decide upon, and there was no money left. So they made the cheapest road they could get away with, and it held up about as long as we thought it was going to. So fortunately, and because the investment did turn out, worked out so well, and has been such a boom for the city, we were able to basically shave all that road in there, and instead of repaving an asphalt as they did previously, they paved back over with concrete. Should be, what was probably a 15 to 20 year road before is now hopefully a 50-year road. And like I said, one of our main assets, we want to keep that looking as best as possible. But that discussion, it really led into the next issue. So behind the mall, or south of Tanger, is the Amish land development. We're fortunate in that the Amish land development has recouped all its initial investment costs to the city. Basically all the money that the city had put out for roads and infrastructure out there to help with that project have now been repaid by the project over its life. And we'd like to move ahead with the next phase of that. Half of that development had been platted and finalized, but there was still a significant section that had not been done. We've spent a lot of background work been going on the past 2 years that nobody really gets to see. A lot of survey work, working on different plans with the developers, and have decided on a roadway plan and had all that engineering done. We've got preliminary agreement from the landowners, and they're actually going through the final development agreements now. And looks like in very short order we're going to be able to move ahead and finish out that road and finish out the subdivision. The reason that's key is over the number of years that I've been here, I've been here about 8 years now, had a lot of developers look at that, but they don't like the uncertainty of what's going to happen with the final plat. Even as we've tried to argue that, well, how would you like it? We can try to figure that out. It's been better. We think it's going to be better to actually have a plan. That will all that will shake out. I think over the course of the next couple weeks, and I'm hopeful if everything goes right, we can still get that project underway and wrapped up this year. So again, with the Cronus decision pending, it would be very nice to have that area open and ready for development. Again, we've had a lot of interest in that. I've had a lot of interest here recently in that area. So this will be another big step, I think, in getting us ready for that.
On the east side of town, on both the north and the south side of 36 is what you're talking about.
Right.
How many acres are we looking at for the development for those two?
Let's see. We have on the north side, the Dixie property and its associated properties, about 7 to 8 acre area total. And maybe one of the extra ones might take it a couple over that. Immediately to the east of that, there's another 60 to 70 acres of developable property. And there's actually a detention pond at the back end of it, which is actually kind of a nice feature. People don't think about that at the time, but if I'm going to come back later and develop commercially on top of that farmland, it's nice to already have that there, and you can put that into the system. Had some good interest on that lately, and I'm thinking some of that's going to actually turn into some more detailed discussion here in the next couple of months. On the east side of the interstate, just right south of the interstate there, we have another large tract. A lot of people don't realize it's was the Stevens farm most of my life. There's about 300 acres there that are actually within a TIF district that the city has not finalized development plans there. We've been pretty open-minded there. We have done the first phases of environmental work and laid out what a water and sewer infrastructure would look like and what some of the needs would be out there. And basically, with the first project would be something we would be ready to go on. Have had some discussions on that in recent months. It's definitely something I would like to get going, and it's probably my next step really as after we get through, I think, this year and some of the talk on the other side of the interstate.
Probably not so glamorous
Right.
is renovations that are needed for flooding and things like that. What's going on with Tuscola at this point for
Right.
those?
So one of the nice things, again, about the revenues that have come from Tanger and the mindset here at City Hall, there's very much a kind of comprehensive planning mindset. And so, that pays out in things like we have a capital budget, a capital replacement plan. And so when we buy new fire trucks or we have to buy a new piece of city equipment, typically the city writes a check for those things. We've been able to save wisely and set that up. Water system improvements and flooding improvements, drainage improvements were a big piece of that too, and what kind of improvements can we do? And so we've had some engineering plans in place for a while, and just this past year the city pursued a grant, and I'm not sure the state agency, is one of the watershed management groups, I believe, and got about a $250,000 grant that just kind of gave us that much more incentive to go get this done. Took about a year of property negotiations. Anytime you're dealing with a small creek in Illinois, you have a lot of drainage districts, a lot of adjacent landowners, all kinds of folks to talk to. All the drainage districts have engineers, there's all kinds of people to deal with. So fortunately, I got through that process very well. We're able to come to agreement with all the landowners, and just last week approved all that through the city council, and all those agreements were signed off on. In the end of the day, we'll have about $1.5 million, $1.6 million worth of floodway improvements. On the north end of town, we know that's going to already take anywhere from 50 to 70 houses immediately out of the floodplain, and basically folks that are currently paying flood insurance will no longer have to. And we expect there will probably be some impacts beyond that once the final mapping and modeling is done. But that work, I just saw them move some of the heavy equipment out there this morning, so it looks like that work is imminent. Same thing on the south side, so we are making improvements basically all the way through town and out to the interstate. On Hayes Branch, the north end, same thing, that will go all the way through town out to the interstate. We will be taking the channel, and they will actually widen, they'll clean out the bottom of the channel, and then they will widen it out and go back up. So what you're doing is adding significant capacity to that floodway. And by doing that, you can then show in modeling that there's room for that floodwater to run off and not sit on those properties. So we've made a lot of improvements in the city. A lot of small drainage improvements over the years have been done, and getting the water to the right places. Now we're taking the places where it goes and getting those bigger, so we have that much more storage. And drainage improvements have worked well in Tuscola. When I came here right back after college, they had just done the Iron Horse golf course development, and we used to have horrible flood problems up in the Parkview, northern end of town. Those almost completely were mitigated by that. Going in there, building the golf course, and then they widened that swale out, and it made a big improvement. Similar thinking here, this is really just taking the next step. And I think that, again, will pay big benefits. We have a lot of folks that don't think they could possibly have a flood encumbered property, and they do. So this will help a lot of those folks out. And again, in the Amish land area, we do have some of that property that's impacted by the floodplain, and taking some of that out, gives us that much more land to develop on.
What about downtown area? I've heard, again, some teasers about
Gotcha.
shops coming in, so can you fill us in?
Well, yeah, we're very pleased. As you know, we've put a lot of effort into the downtown over the years, and some things work, some things don't. But feel like we're on a good stretch here. We had a business start a little over a year ago that's been real successful, and just had a great buzz about it, and has expanded its name out into the region very well. Vintage Karma. The gals that own the shop there have just really done a nice job. Great promoters of themselves, and have done a nice job promoting the downtown. With kind of the queens of promotion, Flesser's down on the corner that we have. So they're really a nice fit for each other, and like I said, it's been nice to have another business like that. Across the street from Vintage Karma, we've had the former Sabemore property has been vacant for a number of years now, or going on the second year now. Sabemore obviously relocated and built a new location, built a new store. And we had a project that was kind of out there in the public, looked like it was going to move forward. We ran into a much more complicated renovation than what we originally had thought. That's kind of what happens when a business is in a building for 50 years, and then it leaves, we find out, hey, maybe there are some things in there we should have been concerned about. So dealing with all those things, and it looks like that plan is finally going to be coming back to council within the next month. We actually have a TIF committee meeting later this afternoon. I'm expecting to hear a little bit of an update on that. But that is for home decor, not somewhat arts and crafts business, but a little more of a furniture side. We always, the city administrator and I, Drew, used to always joke that you can come to Tuscola and buy anything for a house. You can start the concrete block and to the shingles and furnish the whole thing. What you can't do is you can't buy the sheets, can't buy the linens, can't buy the pillows, go on and that kind of stuff. You can buy the furniture, but need it, and some of the accessories, but don't have it all. This kind of closes that circle. And when they first came in and talked to us, that was one of the reasons Drew and I were kind of immediately interested. We thought, hey, that closes that circle finally for us. So they have some interest in food as well. In previous businesses, that they have combined food very much to their business. So it's a business I expect to have a lot of open houses, almost gallery type events that I expect to be in there. Should really be a neat traffic generator and some of the things that they have planned. So very anxious to get them kicked off. We also have the 100 North Main building, which is the former First Mid-Illinois Bank. It was most recently Steve Jackson had an antique business in there for a number of years. The city bought that property a little over a year and a half ago, and had worked with a couple different groups on renovating that for a project. We actually had a professional business that we spent quite a bit of time working with, and looked like they were going to move forward on a project, and that ended up falling through. Which would have kind of been a total different direction, but we really liked the idea of the traffic generator. Again, more of a doctor's office type of thing, and thought that would be it had a lot of out-of-town traffic. But we kind of took a complete 180 and went a total different direction when that fell through, and had a unique opportunity pop up. A gentleman by the name of John McDivitt from Sullivan, Illinois. John owns a business called Yellow Dog Studios, and they were located in a business called Factory Arts Studio, and it was located in an old shoe factory in Sullivan, and had kind of a unique relationship with the owner of the building, and there's some other businesses in the building, and it's just really kind of unique setup. It's not really the most attractive to drive up to, kind of hard to find, a little bit out of the way, but over the course of especially the past 4 or 5 years that I've seen, had turned this really into a really neat business. And what you had was about 40 or 50 different artists that had basically formed in a collective, and they all took out spots within this factory and developed them out, and had just turned them into some beautiful shops. And they have events there once, twice a month, and we're drawing 200, 300, 400 people to some of these events, having movie nights and gallery openings and all kinds of things. So I got to know them, and I know the Sullivan folks well, and had been over there. Well, the owner of the building passed away, and left the building to 13 heirs. And it became very difficult to negotiate a lease. And so unfortunately, they had to find a new home, and they actually went out to Facebook and said, hey, we need a new home. And the Vintage Karma girls had opened up a small spot over in Sullivan, and were a part of the collective. And immediately made a reach out to John, said, hey, come over here. There's probably some buildings we could talk about, and you should come talk to Brian. And I got a call late one afternoon walking out of here, and John was in town, and we went through and walked through the building, and I didn't tell John at the time. It was written all over his face. This is right where he wanted to be. And we took it back to the city council, the TIF committee, and just right off the bat, they had a great reaction to it. The neat thing, and how I presented it to the council was, it's so hard to find good businesses that are a good fit for the downtown. And there's so many factors that come into play, but a big part of that is the people and kind of their whole makeup and personality, and it is a certain kind of individual that can be a successful entrepreneur in a small downtown. It just absolutely is. And we're fortunate we've got a good base of those folks. John totally fits that mold, and just so excited for that reason. But what we're doing here is we're basically going out and bringing in an existing business that has another 10 to 20 businesses that are going to be immediately associated with it, and that will be in the facility with a lot of opportunity to grow beyond that. And I fully expect that they will. So that is going to be called the Vault Arts Collective. They are keeping the vault in the building, as you can imagine. And I'm so excited. That's going to turn out to be a great project. I think I just have real high hopes for it. It plays into a couple of other elements. So the city, for the past several months, the Community Development Plan Committee, we've been looking at this green space, or we keep calling it a green space, that exists basically between that building, the bank building, and the community building. We have a couple buildings in various shades of condition in between there. And the city went out and actually did a conceptual plan on what that would look like, turn that into some kind of public space, similar to the treatment we did on the gazebo down here on the corner. And taking into account what we've seen happen in downtown Champaign, and by really creating the right kind of spaces, we've seen what happens when you create the wrong kind of spaces also. Creating the right kind of space and how that can encourage traffic, and we're finally getting some other businesses, I think, to complement what we have that should lend well to that traffic. But now we kind of need a place for those people to sit and mill around and and hang out, and to be able to have some other events and focus off of. So part of why this is a perfect fit is, again, they are used to having events where they're having several hundred people in, but they won't necessarily have that much space to fit them in their building. Had a little more space down in Sullivan on this factory floor than what they will have here. It will work out well here, but when they have those public events, that's where we'll feel it. So the more we can open out into the lot behind them and that space. So definitely taking a look at that now, and again, it kind of fits in perfect here with that whole discussion. And we're trying to look at this whole area from a comprehensive standpoint, because we've only got about 7-8 years left on the TIF. So what's the maximum impact we can have before the district expires?
Well, that all sounds wonderful, and congratulations on helping get that
Thanks,
accomplished
thanks.
and those things being done. Any other renovations that we can actually talk about that you can
I think
let out
there's,
secrets?
well, not one we've been involved in, but there actually one just kind of snuck right on under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. But the funny thing was, it tells a good story of economic development. Before that project happened, I worked with 3 other projects that never made it, all in the same building. And they ultimately never pulled the trigger, and then out of nowhere one came up, did it all by himself. Jim Lee recently moved his law office, was out on Route 36, to a small house right down at the end of Main Street, right across from the County Museum. And it's a perfect building for a small office. We've had other businesses in there before. I had a number look at them here recently. Needed a little bit of work on the inside. The outside was really in good shape, but it needed the right business again. It needed somebody who's just a 1 or 2 person shop that didn't need a lot of space, and so worked out well for Jim. Like I said, we didn't even have a touch on it. I haven't even talked to him about it, but I had 3 different people before then. 2 in particular I spent a lot of time with. One I spent months with. Going to add on to the building, do all this crazy stuff. We ran all these questions through the building permit office and through Steve, and ultimately, like I said, they actually never moved forward. And then, sure enough, Jim comes right in after that and does it. So that happens a lot. We said, and that's good. We like it when it happens that way too. But lots of good. It's nice that really, what I would say pre-Cronus or pre any site decision, kind of regardless of that, it seems, had a lot of interest in a lot of properties. One that's not quite there yet, but I think is getting close, is the Hardy's property. That's another property on Route 36 that we've had a lot of interest in that property recently. Some interest in potentially subdividing it. It's a pretty good sized piece of property. It's got one building kind of on one side. There's kind of a big lot there. So I do think, I'm hoping those discussions, we've got two different people talking there. I'm hoping next couple months we'll get that one going as well. And potentially, depending on how it works out, it could be potentially one business. Hopefully it could potentially be two businesses. So, but again, kind of hitting that whole Route 36 corridor. And another infrastructure thing coming is the city has we have a sales tax TIF district that's getting ready to expire on the Route 36 corridor. And so that's part of the reason some of these projects they've done in the past year, and the drainage project is part of that. We're still going to have a fairly significant amount of funds left, and one of the things we're talking about today is we have sidewalks now mostly on the north side of 36, but we don't have any sidewalks on the south side. So this would fix that issue. We're looking at addressing that, doing some landscaping, some improvements along that corridor in a couple of different spots, just trying to kind of enhance the overall look along there. So as you come into town, obviously that's our first big view. So kind of regardless which way you come through. So I'd like to clean that up a little bit.
Well, Brian, we'd like to thank you very much for your time, and we'd like to make this a reoccurring event.
Absolutely.